brain. This is known as neuroplasticity. There are lots of different ways your brain can change. You can produce new brain cells. You can produce new brain pathways. You can improve the speed and efficiency of pathways from different parts of your brain or from your brain to your muscles and vice versa. And if we can learn how to optimize this, we can help our athletes perform better and we can feel better about the sport that we are doing as well. Alright? So why might this be specifically important to you? Maybe you want to learn how you can optimize physical performance by using the techniques in neuroscience that can help you harness more energy from your brain to produce better skills. Maybe you're interested in understanding what are the limitations that I myself as an athlete or the individuals I'm coaching or training are facing that have nothing to do with their body's mechanics. Right? We can look at, for example, the squat. Okay? I have short femurs and long torsos. My squat looks very different from someone that has a different body ratio. And sometimes we need to look at body mechanics and understand what is the best way in order to approach this for this individual. Let's say we look at someone's body mechanics. We've looked at their history, we've looked at their movement over time, and we're still seeing something that is preventing them from improving. Maybe it's neurologically related. Alright? And if you can understand what is that gap in their neural pathway that is preventing them from succeeding, and it could be as simple as a mental block. It could be mental fatigue. It could be lack of the right resources. Maybe they're on a ketogenic diet and that's just not working for their genetics. Whatever it may potentially be, we can take a look at that and make changes that aren't specifically body mechanics, but are neurological. Maybe we actually just want to improve our neurological and cognitive health, right? We know there's a direct relationship between how you move your body and how effectively your brain is going to be able to work, right? Our bodies, evolutionarily, were designed to move. If you compare us to other species, we are actually designed to be moving 10, 12 hours a day. Most of us don't. Most of us, as we are right now, unfortunately, are sitting. Now, if I were to ask you to stand during this talk, that would be very time. But the reality is that our body was designed to move, and our brain responds very positively to that. So how can we optimize movement in order to improve our neurological cognitive health? And finally, maybe you want to inform others of the value of sport exercise. Alright? If you enjoy sports, if you are an athlete, right, you're going to love it. That's why you're there. But the minority of people around the world are actually active in sport or exercise. That's the minority, whereas the human body was designed to move. So you can see why there's such a strong relationship between increased levels of depression and decreased levels of physical activity. We see sedentary individuals and how that's impacting their neurological outcomes. How can we get people that are not necessarily interested in moving their bodies to move their bodies more, especially if they don't really care much about competing in a sport, or they don't care about the aesthetics, or they don't care about any of that, they feel like they don't have time. The reality is that if you move your body, that is actually going to have impacts on other areas of your life, emotionally, cognitively, and socially. Maybe that's what you want to know more about. Okay? So I want to talk a little bit about how your brain creates neural pathways when you do a movement. And I'm hoping this video will work. If it doesn't, I'll just explain it.
What's going on in the brain when you learn? In order to learn anything, whether it's math, foreign language, guitar, or how to throw the basketball, you need to create and strengthen pathways in your brain. Think about shooting a throw. Know that feeling when you got it down and don't connect the finger with it? That's muscles. Here's the thing. Muscle memory lives in your brain, not the muscles. Your brain controls everything the muscles do, and it does
pause the video there. Now, what this is showing you is every time you are producing a specific movement, and the more repetitions and the more practice you do, yes, your muscles are getting trained, yes, your body mechanics are going to adapt for that movement. But what's really key here is that your brain is physically changing. It is contributing more neural cells and pathways to produce that movement, and that pathway gets stronger and stronger over time. And that increase in strength is what allows you to master something, so it becomes subconscious to you. You don't have to think about it. How do we go from something being very conscious to us when we're practicing a skill to subconscious? It's when you create those neural pathways through plasticity, right? And the interesting thing about this is that we can actually harness technology to activate those specific brain areas, which is another whole area of neuroscience if you're interested. If you want to know how you can actually get your brain to contribute more neural pathways for a specific movement, we can use technology like magnets to activate those specific areas to optimize those movements, and then your body mechanics will follow suit. So either you do body mechanics first, and then your brain changes, or you try to activate your brain regions to get your body mechanics to improve quickly. That is also a potential application. So let's talk about improving physical performance specifically. All right. These are not going to work because I didn't log in. That's okay. We have a very engaged audience. It's fine. When we talk about cognitive techniques to improve performance, I want you to think about what is something you do or you tell your athletes to do cognitively right before they go on the field, right before they go on the court, right before they do that lift. What are some cognitive techniques you use? Raise your hand if you can think of something. Would you like to share? Visualizing the movement before you do it, or the technique, yes. Positive self-talk, 100%. Yeah.
Mindfulness, meditation.
Sorry?
Mindfulness, meditation, cognitive meditation, and all visual, all of the cognitive abilities where you can work with our assets.
Perfect, amazing. So there's lots of different skills that we already tell our athletes and ourselves to use before we do a movement. And it's really interesting. When I first started CrossFit, I learned this rule where when you go to the barbell, okay, and you're away from the barbell and you're mentally preparing for it, and someone just walks past you in front of you, that's like an absolute no in the box. By the way, if you don't know this rule, learn this rule. If you walk in front of an athlete right before they're doing their sport, whatever it may be, you're going to break their focus. All right, we don't do that. There is a box you are in that is your mental focus box when you're preparing for a movement. That is a very sacred box. We leave that box alone unless you're the one in the box, okay? And it's true. We know cognitively these things make sense, but what's the neuroscience behind it? What is actually happening in your brain that is breaking your focus? What is happening in your brain when you're visualizing a task? Let me tell you something about visualization. This is going to come on later, but because you mentioned it, I think it's very important. Raise your hand if you've heard of mirror neurons. Okay. Raise your hand if you've heard of neurons. Okay, just making sure. Neurons is just another word for your brain cells, right? Mirror neurons are specific brain cells that actually mimic a movement even though you're not actually doing it. So if I'm watching someone walk, I have specific neurons in my brain that are performing that walking movement as if I'm doing it myself, but I'm not doing that movement. Now when you visualize yourself doing something, your mirror neurons are already activating and they're doing that movement, preparing and priming you to actually execute that movement efficiently. So that is the purpose of mirror neurons. This is what neuroscience is all about. Understanding, okay, now we know we have mirror neurons. How can we get them to activate more effectively? How can we use that when you're trying to perform? Okay. Your brain can plan a movement before you are consciously aware, right? That is effectively mirror neurons. So what's really important is that before you do a movement, there are several steps involved. The execution of the movement is just one step. First of all, you have to think about what movement you're going to do. This actually happens unconsciously. There's something known as the readiness potential, which is when your brain is aware that you are going to do a movement even before you actually do it. And we've seen this on a graph. We see brain activity happen before you're consciously aware that you're going to do the movement. Then you have to plan the movement. How far do I have to go? How fast do I have to go? How long will it take me to get there? Then you have to signal to your muscles, I need to do this movement. Then your motor system gets involved and you do the movement. Now you have to think about how far do I go, when do I stop, and how do I end the movement. All of that is happening outside of your muscles. Only one part is happening in your muscles, the rest is happening in your brain. If we continue to just train our body and train our muscles and train our movement, that's great. But there's so much of the equation that we're missing out on that we can optimize if we knew how our brain is actually involved in those movements. That's fine. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you guys about a study, about how we've actually optimized this. And I'd be very interested to know if you've already heard of this study. Do you think that, because based on everything I've said so far, is it possible to actually improve your body's movement just by thinking about it and not doing it at all? So I'll give you an example. Let's say if you are doing weightlifting. I always go to weightlifting because it's just something that I'm very familiar with. So you're doing bicep curls. If you are doing a bicep curl over and over again, over several weeks, you're going to build strength. You're going to build muscle mass, okay? If you're not actually doing a movement, but you're just thinking about it, and we know the brain changes if you think about a movement, can you still build muscle mass in your body without doing movement at all? Maybe? Okay, let's talk about a research. Researchers divided participants into 3 groups. The first group was the group that actually did bicep curls 3 days a week, hypertrophy range for 12 weeks. Alright? The second group was told to just imagine themselves doing the exact same exercise for the exact same duration 3 times a week, but not physically doing it. And the third group was the control group. They were told to carry on their lives as normal for 12 weeks. What did they find? They found, obviously, that in the exercise group, they had a 53% increase in muscle mass and strength in their biceps. Makes sense, you're doing that exercise for 12 weeks, okay? What did they find in group 1 that was just doing the mental exercise, not physically doing any bicep curls at all whatsoever? An increase in muscle mass and strength of 14% in those biceps, despite not actually moving their biceps at all in a bicep curl movement. That's incredible. That's 14%, yeah, maybe it's not a lot. But the fact that our brain is so capable at changing our body in anticipation for our body doing something, without our body actually doing it, tells us volumes about what our brain is actually capable of doing. And this is all purpose of neuroscience. The last thing I want to talk about is how we actually improve our cognitive health. Okay, what happens in our brain when you exercise? This is the last thing I'm going to talk about before I end here. We see physiological and physical changes in the brain when you do exercise. We see increases in hippocampal volume. The hippocampi are 2 structures in your brain that are responsible for certain types of memory. And we've seen that exercise is now being used to prevent cognitive impairment, to delay the onset of these things. And that is because we're able to increase the part of your brain that is responsible for learning and memory. You also have increased synthesizing proteins. Your muscles actually release protein that specifically go to your brain to tell your brain how to function cognitively, how to create synapses. These are your neurotrophins, like your BDNF, all sorts of different molecules that actually enter your brain because your muscles are producing them. So if you're not moving your muscle, your brain is not getting enough concentration of those specific proteins responsible for cognitive. Right? We see increased blood flow, not only in your body, the parts that you're moving it, but that blood flow is obviously going to go to your brain as well. That is more energy and resource for your brain to be able to use. We see increased levels of neurotransmitters, which are actually responsible for producing LTP. LTP is long-term potentiation. This is when you become really good at doing something because you've learned it, and the reason you've learned it is because your brain has changed its structure. It's created more receptors in response to the neurotransmitters to produce that function. So the connection between how your brain can improve your physical performance and how your physical performance can improve your brain is very obvious. It is very available in research data today. It's just a matter of what are we going to do with that information and are we actually going to apply it? This is something that I do very heavily in research, but we need more opportunities like this where we can actually discuss how this can be implemented for you as an individual, as coaches, as professionals, and also as the public. What are certain policies we need to put in place potentially to get more of the public involved in moving their body to prevent depression, to prevent Alzheimer's? That's all from me. I'm being told that my time's up, so thank you very much.
We do have time for one question though, if anybody has. Yes, from the left.
Okay.
I'll give you the mic.
Thank you for that presentation. Another brilliant presentation, thank you. My question is really around the cognitive performance of the brain with exercise. So just, many moons ago, I was a physical education teacher, teaching students from 4 years through to 18 years. And there was obviously more primitive research out there that time. But you know, it was recognised that, you know, doing exercise would improve academic performance in terms of cognitive performance. But at what point do you know, we introduce sort of brain gym activities within the classroom? You know, for example, now maybe we all need to get up and, you know, wave our hands and turn around and do a couple of squats. You know, does that work, or is this, say, some exercise before or during? Is it during, or is it like at some point in the day? I just want to kind of have a bit more information on that.
Thank you so much. That's a fantastic question, and to be honest, it is a bit of a loaded one. The reason I say that is because depending on what outcome you're looking for, you're going to want to do different things. We see long-term benefits of early physical activity. So for example, if you had a sedentary lifestyle your whole life, that's obviously going to have an impact on your cognitive health, whereas if you've had a life of physical activity, that's going to have an impact on your cognitive health. What we have actually seen in research is we actually compared different populations of men, one that were active in fitness early in their life, and now they're in their 80s and 90s and no longer active and have not been active for at least 20 years. They had increased muscle mass in their legs compared to their sedentary counterparts. And those individuals that had increased muscle mass in their legs, they were much more likely to do better in cognitive tasks. So we actually see long-term effects of early lifehood physical movement. Now, if you're looking for immediate results, definitely if you move your body, you're going to increase circulation, you're going to increase brain flow, you're going to start to release certain chemicals that can actually optimize your brain. This is going to improve short-term attention, short-term focus, for sure. But how you use that attention and focus will vary. Because when we do these studies in children, you move their body, which is excellent, they can come back to the table, they can learn better. But it's whether or not they choose to actually use that energy for this arithmetic task they're doing, or now they have a conversation with their friend about something they remember they did last week. So that's kind of the tricky portion there. So yes, there are short-term benefits, but what I think is really valuable is kind of the long-term benefits as well. But if you ever feel like you are experiencing some sort of brain fog and you want to overcome that, a quick 15-minute jog will do wonders for you if you decide to come back with that new focus and apply it to exactly the task that you want to do. Oftentimes we get this energy, we come back like, I don't want to do this task anyway, and then we use that energy doing something else and we continue to procrastinate. But definitely there is potential to use that immediately. Great question. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Professor, for such an insightful conversation. Our next speaker is the head of the business development at RIT Sports and Entertainment, a global leader in sports data and analytics. He leads on all new business projects across the MENA region, working with key sports entities, rights holders, and brands such as Dubai Sports Council, Saudi Pro League, PIF, and Qatar Airways. Please welcome Dale Roble onto stage as he speaks to us about banning Disney trends and how these could impact sponsorship. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much to Faisal and the team for the introduction, and thank you very much for the wonderful presentations. I have a very, very hard act to follow. I'm going to take us in a completely different direction, away from performance and into the commercial side of sports and entertainment. I'll go through a little bit about what we do at Nielsen Sports globally and also in the region, go through a little bit of the landscape of the Middle East with sports, and then how that relates to fan engagement and sponsorship. Yeah, thanks. As mentioned before, Nielsen Sports, we're a global leader in sports media valuation, data intelligence, and research consulting. So we provide brands and rights holders with knowledge to identify, connect with audiences that matter most to them. So we track and monitor over 15,000 teams, leagues, and events all over the world. We track over 7 million hours of content across TV, digital, social media platforms, covering about 150,000 brands that invest or involved in sports across 50 markets globally. And this equates to billions of data points to help inform strategic direction, commercial decisions that help to elevate sport. So we're a trusted industry voice. We work with a variety of stakeholders, whether rights holders, brands, media and broadcasters, or agencies. And this is just a snapshot of some of the entities and organizations that we work with globally. And then locally, we have extensive experience and expertise to work in the Middle East region, again across brands, events, rights holders like Saudi Pro League, ICC, and then key brands investing in sports, both locally but also globally, such as Qatar Airways, PIF, Aramco. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Middle East sports landscape, what the outlook is, some key trends and challenges. So the Middle East sports industry projected to grow by 8.7% by 2026, which is more than double the global rate. I think this signifies the importance of sport in the region, but also the ambition and the intent from the countries as well to make the Middle East a key hub for sports and entertainment, sports investment, hosting major events, but also helping to drive participation. And I think university sports is a key part of that as well. So really, it emphasizes the importance of sport from economic, social, and tourism perspective. And like I said, the Middle East has become a global sports hub, which is demonstrated through F1 races currently being present in 4 countries: Bahrain, Saudi, Qatar, and the UAE. And then we had the recent announcement of the 2034 FIFA World Cup being awarded to Saudi, which follows on from the success of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. It further enhances the region's reputation as a major sports event destination. And there's lots of other stuff happening as well across the region, whether it's the Asian Cup, the Asian Games, even the Asian Winter Games happening in Saudi Arabia. So there's plenty happening in the region, and yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. So some key emerging trends. This is a bit of a controversial one for anyone involved in traditional sports, but esports and gaming is showing massive rise, growing rapidly. We've got the emergence of the Esports World Cup being held in Saudi Arabia, and then recently, even the Esports Olympics is also due to be hosted in the region. Another one is women's sports, the emergence and increased investment in women's sports. We've seen a growing fan base and also increased in commercial potential. And then this is one that I guess impacts me quite a lot, and that impacts what Nielsen does, is this changing sports media landscape. So this is something that is also a global trend, not just a regional trend. But there's a huge shift in terms of media consumption, a huge transformation, major moves away from TV, traditional TV broadcasts and traditional media rights deals to streaming and short-form content. Nielsen as a, let's say, a media and data business. This is, yeah, it is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity as well. And I think in the region, 50% of the population are aged under 25. So this young demographic is not just reshaping how we participate in sports, but also how sports content is consumed and engaged with. And there lies the opportunity. So I'm just going to move on a little bit to talk about sort of fan engagement, some strategies, how it can potentially be applied to university sport. So content is key, and audience is everything when it comes to engaging with sports fans. With such a young regional demographic, streaming and social media platforms are key drivers in the region for engaging with the younger population, combined with their interest outside of sport as well, such as gaming, art, fashion, to further enhance that engagement. So I've just picked out a few based on some of the research, syndicated research that we have, a couple of strategies that might be able to be applied to university sport and help them to elevate that from a commercial sponsorship point of view. So one of those is capitalizing on existing interest. So social media popularity shows very high, as expected, average values across most fan groups in the UAE. And just a couple of examples, 84% of male basketball fans and female football fans in the UAE are also fans of using social media. And I think relating that back to Gen Z or millennials, they're now preferring to consume sports highlights and short clips rather than actually watching full games. And that's where platforms like TikTok, YouTube, even Instagram potentially are significant sources for this type of content. So then how does that potentially relate back to university sport? I know you had university games quite recently, and there could be a lot of highlights, a lot of content, potential engagement that can come from that. So it's ensuring that maybe social media presence is strong, creating engaging content relevant to the university students, to the teams. Again, this could include your short form highlights, interactive polls for social media competitions, to help increase engagement. And I think that's a key takeaway there is to tailor your content to your desired audience. So what are their interests, what do they want to see, what type of content they want to see, is your content different if you want to appeal to female students or male students. I think that's also an important point. And then based on some more research, so I just created a social media competition example for you on how to engage. So research suggests that strong interest in cinema among UAE sports fans. 67% of male basketball fans and 68% of female football fans responded positively about going to the cinema. So maybe there's potential here to run social media campaigns or competitions, link to cinema tickets or experiences for your university team members, supporters, and then possibly link that back to attendance of an event or a match day, try and get more engagement around university sport. And then another strategy could be leveraging growing interest. So art in our galleries has actually shown an increase in interest in the UAE among sports fans. 78% of male basketball fans in the UAE also showed an interest in art in galleries, and 66% of female fans showed an interest in art in our galleries. So I think we're at a bit of a crossroads or a cross point where sports, arts and culture, especially in the region, are coming together a lot. They have a lot to offer each other, and that combination has multifaceted potential. These different elements come together and influence each other in many ways, which we can see with football clubs involved in or sports and sponsorships as well. We have Louis Vuitton now sponsoring F1, for example. So with art, fashion, culture, and sport, they're getting closer and closer aligned. In the university context, maybe there's potential and space for cross-faculty cooperation. Maybe your art and creative faculties can create unique media content or add art-related themes in sports, merchandise, or sports apparel to help elevate the overall sports and university experience. And then how does this relate back to sponsorships? So sponsorships act as a powerful way and a powerful catalyst for the improvement and enhancement of sports. By creating increased fan engagement for university sport, this can potentially lead to increased interest from sponsors, and this revenue could lead to enhanced university sport and experience for all. And how could that sponsorship revenue be used for university sport? So one is drive participation. Revenues can be used to help promote sports participation at all levels, not just at the competitive team level, but to try and increase participation throughout the university. Enhanced fan engagement. Sponsors can often contribute to the fan experience through interactive activations at events, contests, giveaways, and creates a more engaged, memorable atmosphere for supporters and participants. And then also positive brand association. So reputable brands sponsor sports events or teams, it enhances credibility, and also potentially attract more participants, more media attention, more prestige to the events, which can also help elevate the experience for everyone. So that is pretty much me. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning, and if you have any questions on anything commercial or related to sport, happy to answer.
Any questions? Okay, if not, thank you again. We have a small group we will now commence a quick tea break, so if you guys need to use the washroom, you can go quickly down like a couple of stairs on the right, and you'll have that, and then please help yourself to continue snacking. We'll be back in about 10 minutes.
I tend to very out there. I am like,
Are you not the RIT MC? Every time.
I'm trying to make a career out of it now. You're speaking next? Last. The future sports.
Let's see.
How are you doing the
It's not. It's interesting. It's good to be away from the daily, mundane answering emails, because in facilities, contractors and documents, and be able to just come and have an open eye.
It's like a common complaint I hear is like from professors as well. Like, all we do is like a lot of like emails, just a lot of Excel. You want to do like
Meet people and speak. It's good. I don't know about my speaking, I'll see.
So it can be of course, yeah. Alright, everybody, we're about to get started back in a few more minutes. So grab your seats, grab a snack. Awesome, okay, so I hope you all enjoyed the little break. Now that we're back, our next speaker, Mike Drummond, is a passionate and adaptable sports science specialist with over 15 years of experience spanning across physiotherapy, performance coaching, youth development, and strength and conditioning. Holding a master's in physiotherapy, Mike blends scientific expertise with practical insight to help individuals and organizations unlock their full potential. Based in Dubai, Mike is the development manager for the UAE region at Valve, the global leader in human measurement technology. In this role, he collaborates with over 60 organizations on performance, healthcare, education, and practical sectors to integrate cutting-edge testing and data-driven solutions. In addition to his work with Valve, Mike serves as the performance and physiotherapy lead with UAE Rugby, supporting the 7th, 15th, and women's national. Please welcome Mike Drummond on the stage for this.
Okay, can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks for obviously the invitation. I'm once again really sorry for obviously the back and forth of trying to obviously get here. I was supposed to be in Morocco today, but with the UAE rugby team, but they've moved the game to Kenya next week. So today I'm going to be speaking a little bit around not too much heaviness on data, essentially, but how we can actually start to incorporate different sporting performance-based science approaches in our university sector here in the UAE. So, in terms of my story, this is me playing rugby at the University of Derby, and in this game I actually dislocated my shoulder. I don't know if anyone's seen the Run It, the Run It sort of new sport that's coming out where two people run against each other and they collide. That was pretty much what happened there. I run against this person, he completely flatlined me, I kept onto the ball, gave it to someone else, got back up, run forward again, and as I got tackled, put my arm out and dislocated my shoulder and landed into my arm directly down onto it. And the reason why I'm talking about this was going back to identity. As a student, I loved sport. I loved playing, in the Bucks leagues. I loved playing varsity. Rugby league was my sport. Even though I'm a southerner in the UK, it's a northern sport, but I stayed with two people from Hull, and they said to me, if you play rugby union, you can't stay with us. So I had to play rugby league. But when I was at university, I dislocated my shoulder in the second year, I stopped playing. stopped playing sport altogether. Because there was no return to play within the sporting structure. There was no data or no physio there to actually give me good rehab programs, and I lost my identity. So when I tried to go back to the game, you know, psychologically I was in bits. I tried to play the same type of game I used to play, tried to be aggressive, tried to, you know, really be that same sort of player, and I just never got back to where I needed to be. And I think it was a couple of things. I don't think there was enough psychological support for actual individuals to return back to play with confidence. What another presenter was saying earlier about the neural pathways, imagery, visualization, reaching out for support. You know, rugby players, we were told, you know, be strong, never be fearful. You know, visualization, imagery, just get on the pitch and play. And I think not just data, but actually sports science as a whole, and the 360-degree approach of how we develop athletes is something that I feel like we can all do. No matter how much of it, how little of it, something is better than nothing, essentially. So at the time, so going back to my story, so what my passion is now is to try and actually enhance sporting performers' ability to perform well and optimising the pitch from a four-corner model approach. So socially, technically, tactically, what they're doing from a habit perspective, obviously physical capacity, and from mindset and psychology. At that moment in time, Derby University didn't have any VALD equipment, and I'll touch on what VALD equipment actually is in a second, but now they do. So I'm a bit jealous of all the students, because, you know, if I had the ability to have a really good return to play using some VALD equipment, I think I could have played in the third year, and I could have hopefully, or actually when I played my last varsity game, and actually played at a decent level moving forward, but here we are. So, next, so hands up if anyone's heard of VALD before. A couple of people, okay, brilliant. So what VALD is we're a technology company that help practitioners, sporting practitioners, teachers, educators, physiotherapists, S&C coaches understand their athletes, their patients, their personnel in a better way. I'm not going to sit here and give you a bit of a sales pitch of all the people that we work with, but if you think about one of the biggest teams that you know, it's very, very likely that we work with. But if you actually know what we're starting to see is how it isn't just the big leagues that have our equipment. Actually, we're starting to work with people from all different walks of life. Our health arm is now overtaking our performance arm, so we're actually seeing the need for data in health, education, workforces, occupational health. So, you know, we've got 7,000 clients worldwide, and 10% of those are colleges and universities. A lot of the colleges and universities that you work for, we work with essentially abroad and overseas as well. So we operate over 120 different countries, 300 staff, and what we really want to do is actually just democratise the use of how we test and manage our athletes and our students or our patients. So, strength in numbers. I'm a sort of scientist, I'm a physio, but I'm not really I was never really heavy on data. I'm more about developing a person before we develop an informer, but I use data to really help me guide my principles and guide my interventions. Are we moving in the right way or the wrong way? When I was working at UAE Rugby, when we first started, we were doing zero testing. I got almost laughed out the room when I said we can actually implement S&C programs and testing programs to inform how we work with our athletes better and moving forward. Now we're in our second year, we're doing full testing across our 7s, our 15, our women's team, and we make it very specific to what we're trying to achieve. Is it injury surveillance data? Is it return to play data? Is it from an aspect of actually understanding what their physical capacity is, specific to their position, their sport, their injury history? So, VALD have a range of different systems that you can see on, is this what later? You probably can't see it, it's pretty colour. There's a range of different systems. We have the dynamo that tests everything from the neck all the way down to the ankle from a strength point of view. We have the force decks, which measure jumps, balance, isometric strength, functional assessment. The NOR board, someone said to me they wanted to have a go on the NOR boards. Yep, Dale, yeah. The NOR board was our first ever system. Test the hamstrings, and it was actually found a little bit by mistake. In 2015, the Premier League had fatal hamstring injuries. They were, on average, each club was spending £220,000 per month per club just on hamstring injuries due to lost wages. That's when we come in and develop the law board. So they develop the law board to allow them to actually identify potential weaknesses across specific players in order to be able to, put in an intervention to make them stronger. But one of the key muscle groups that you have injuries within across invasion-based sports, rugby, football, basketball. And then off the back of that, we create the force frame underneath it, which measures everything from the neck all the way down to the ankle. Mainly it was developed to test around the hips, but now you're seeing, use of it across the UFC, Major League Baseball, and so on. The interesting thing with the force frame, so the Australian RAF, and I know I'm going off a bit off piece here, we've done some work with them from a tactical point of view. They used to lose 1 in 4 pilots. 1 in 4 pilots, and it used to cost them $10 million to actually train that pilot. And when we actually went into work with them, where we said, what injuries are they getting? How are you losing them? And they said it was neck injuries due to G-forces. So we actually looked at what their screening was. So we went in and said, what are you doing to screen them? We're doing press-ups. We're doing a 3.2 kilometre run, and we're doing sit-ups. Okay, so if they get a neck injury, how do those 3 tests help you get that fighter jet pilot back into the cockpit and be able to fly again? So they were like, they started using the force frame to measure isometric neck strength, and then that gave them the ability to actually identify potential weaknesses, but if they do get injured, we have a number to work back to, with a baseline. So if there was any issues that were occurring, they could obviously turn them back to service safely, but more importantly, they could identify. They could potentially identify, not prevent, identify where there might be ways in which actually this person's at more of a risk of injury. Over the 3 years of working with them, it went from 1 in 4 pilots to now 1 in 11 that are medically discharged. So technically saving 40 million. So, not too bad. We've got smart speed testing, we've got human track, which is biomechanical analysis, and then that all feeds onto the Valve Hub, and that gives us a really good, nice insight of the performer as a whole. And universities, as I say, use our systems in different ways. They might use them from a research perspective, they might use them from their sporting teams, so understanding exactly benchmarking them, seeing where they're at. There's lots of other ways in which they use it for well-being scores, they use it for social events, they use it for recruitment, so you've got any sporting programs where people want to start going work in sport, education, sport performance, our systems are likely going to be there, but not now just in sport. If you've got any health-related courses, the amount of systems that are being used across health is, profound. Our health vertical is completely shot over our performance vertical now. Strength in numbers. So pain points in university sport and performance. So I'm here today, I want to learn a little bit more about the university ecosystem that we have here in the UAE. We work with 670 unis across the world, but we only work with 2 here in the UAE. Across the Middle East, I think we work with around 8. So I'm here today not to try and lecture or say this is what you should be doing. I'm here to actually understand a little bit better how we can help work potentially with you and actually see what we're seeing in America, Australia, the UK, Europe, Asia, and how we can then start to bring that into the Middle East and obviously grow sport, performance, health, well-being of our students. So, does anyone want to take a little bit of a punt of what I thought the first pain point might be, just from the emblem? Social, okay, I'll put next. Kind of, yeah. Network, nice, like it. So, network, we've got the neural connection, right? Network, so the big problem that we have, well, we saw in other universities, with lots of different practitioners. We had the sports coaches, we had the university lecturers, we had students themselves, we had maybe the clubs that they were performing in, we then had the SEC coaches, we had physios, we had lots of people, same in sports teams, with lots and lots of people gathering data on the performer, or the student. Our platform allows people to actually go into the student's profile and identify exactly, connect the dots, essentially. Where is this athlete sitting amongst their peers, their group, the normative data that we have? You know, is this person improving? If they suffer an injury that they're being faced with? And it really allows the network of people, or the cluster of people that is working with that individual, to be able to go into their account and actually see what their health, well-being, and performance scores are. Anyone want to take a punt at the next one? Yes. Targets. Okay. Yeah. To be fair, I'll be completely honest. I do know what it is. Insight. Targets insight. So, when we do an intervention with someone, so in the REF, for example, if we didn't identify that that was an issue, and this is the intervention, and we don't retest, we don't gain an insight of actually how well our interventions are working. Just say we've got our athletics team at university. You know, we want to see if we do a 6-week power block with them, or concurrent training, or some form of contrast sets with them, does that have an impact on performance? We're not really testing. It's very hard for us to actually identify, has what we've done, or the intervention that we've done, had an impact. So gaining an insight into what we're doing, and has it, you know, had a role to play in potential success or return to play, gives us a really, really nice way to do that. We are testing, and I'll probably go on to that on the clock one. Next one, anyway, the fuel gauge of the bars. Anyone want to take a punt? Shout out. Performance. Kind of, yeah, benchmarking, monitoring performance. So what we've got 17 million data records on general population, genders, ages, sports, everything. If we were to test, for example, the women's volleyball team, we could then say, right, for the average 20-year-old volleyball player, a jump player, power, or agility, this is where you're sitting. For college level volleyball players. If we've got a basketball team, we can say this is where you're sitting, but then we're not forgetting that data is the only thing. Data is not just the only aspect of performance, which I'll touch on, but we can monitor them, and then as I say, we go back to the insight, and we put an intervention in, we can understand and monitor how we move the needle across the year for a performance angle when we work with them. What's the last orange one? Time, yeah. So we want to, time is valuable, right? We're all very, very busy, lots of projects on. We want to be able to save as much time as possible. And lost time due to poor interventions or not knowing if something's worked, with understanding if we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction, all buys us back time. So it's twofold. When we're testing an athlete, old school methods of testing take a lot of time traditionally. Okay, so our systems allow us to test a squad of 30 players from a sprint speed point of view. We do a 30-meter sprint. Because of the laser gates and the way they're set up and they connect to the app, that potentially with stopwatches, then type it, writing down each score, and then putting that onto the Excel spreadsheet, and then giving it back to the player. It could take hours, if not days. We turn that into minutes. So we can literally do a sprint speed test. It will automatically go onto the Valve Hub, and then that's delivered to the student on their phone. So it's the ability to be able to collect data, analyse the data, give it back to the person as quickly as possible. I'm going to fly through these bottom ones, because I know we're tight on time. So, AI, innovation, you know, I'll be completely honest, I'm not too sure how I feel about this AI revolution. It is the future. I'm very much a human connection person. Even though I work with data and I work for Valve, I'm much more about actually connecting with people. But I definitely think there's a huge hunger for students to have technology in their programs. Where Gen Z, they want technology. You know, they want some form of technology, especially from an athletic point of view. They want to know and understand data on themselves, and this isn't just for the top performers. This is now we're seeing this across, you know, college level, high school level, all the way through now to university levels. Engagement and recruitment. So universities are doing a lot, from what I see abroad, to try and engage students into their programs, pull them in, recruit them, retain them, and get the next set of students back in. Technology and equipment like Valve, not only just Valve, can give you the ability to do that. It's a unique selling point, something which I should have probably looked a little bit closer on when I chose University of Derby, but they didn't have anything. I had the other one was University of Manchester. They had about at that moment in time when I was there. I should have gone there. We've got actually tested and got rehab, probably a bit better. The next one is research. You know, our devices are built off of universities. They're all built off the back of research. And if we've got students carrying out research, or we've got professors carrying out research within wellbeing, within universities, our devices are there to help and support you be able to do that in a lot faster, easy, more manageable, repeatable and reliable way. The next one is sport performance. You know, we want to improve performance, we want to have more athletes readily available, not injured, or being able to return back from injury in a faster rate. You know, our devices you can use them to help. Obviously, you need the staffing structures, you need the facilities, and that's something which I've spoken to a couple of people around about. How do we get potentially people who don't come from a sports science background or a physiotherapy background, utilising our systems and our data and understanding how to actually move the needle and go from there. Last one, pathways. So actually identifying people's development over time, like we would from an educational perspective. Right, you've got 2-2, or well, I don't know what you grade over here, but in first year, you're getting third or 2-2, second year, you're getting 2-1, third year, you're getting first. You know, like we track education, we should be tracking their performance and sport performance over time. You know, to be able to give that back to them and say, when you first come in, this is what your physical capacity and mental capacity look like, and your well-being. In your third year, we're now letting you spread your wings, go off into the big wide world. You're physically more robust, you're mentally more robust, and you're socially more, adaptable and be able to communicate with people from all around the world. So it's being part of the bigger picture. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I then showed this slide to another group. And when I actually looked at, from a physiotherapy point of view, why I use technology instead of being really hands-on, it followed suit of very similar stuff. So we're all trying to do the same thing. Whether we're an educator, whether we're a physio, whether we're a coach, we're all trying to do the same thing. So, a couple of things, benchmarking. So when we're benchmarking people, just wanted to kind of touch on some of the data of what you can do. There's a couple of ways in which we benchmark. So one way is against ourselves. So what we do here is similar to what I said about the pathways point of view. We can do a counter movement jump, which is basically a fast eccentric, concentric jump. That gives us the ability to assess power, neuromuscular fatigue, but also gives us the ability to measure left and right on the forceps that you can see on the floor. We can measure someone pre-season, mid-season break, end of pre-season. We can start to see how we move the needle across the year. And then what you can see here, 58th percentile, will give us the instant reading of where you sit amongst your group. For example, this was an NRL team in Australia. The girls are jumping, really good video, because they're all egging each other on, they're all telling it's a really good environment. And then she's jumping, and then you get your watts per kilo pretty much straight away. It can tell you straight away, have you improved since last time? Really good for obviously adherence and compliance. To be able to go and do your S&C and your performance. Wait, jumping down one second. The next way in which we can do this is against each other. So, or the norm. Everyone likes a radar graph. Anyone who works in S&C, I don't really know why, but everyone likes a radar graph. So we've got player A, which is in orange, we've got player B, and then we've got the positional average, which is in grey. So we can then measure against two people, has one intervention worked in comparison to another intervention? So if we had we were doing two types of interventions, we can see if we move the needle in different ways. Around the outside, different types of tests. Counter movement jump and INCP, which is the top part of the deadlift, just to give us our dynamic strength. And Nordic, for example, in lots of different ways. But we can see where someone's stronger, and we can see where we need to develop other people in different ways. So this is where we can actually save time, because we can actually identify across the group. We need to really hone in onto something specific. Otherwise, we could just be training a certain type of person in the wrong way, and train them at something they're actually good at, and focusing on some of the stuff that they're not good at. The last one, in terms of benchmarking, is against the group. So this is where you can use our platform Valve Hub to automatically test the team, and then you can actually see immediate comparisons using group averages, and you can flag the people who are below their group average or the people that are getting better. So we can start to identify, is it because they're not coming to training? Is it because they're not integrating well into our S&C program? Is it because of an injury or fatigue? Is it well-being? Is it psychological stress? Is it exam stress? What is it? What's the reason why they're not potentially improving? So we can start to use the physical capacity data to actually identify potential reasons why someone might not be, moving the needle essentially in certain types of tests. So this is a workframe that I use with every athlete I work with. As I said, I've been going quite heavy onto the data side of things, and that data kind of goes into the physical corner, but I actually think data actually works across all four corners, from habits, routines, the technical tactical ability, physical components, the social corner, and psychological. The reason why I believe data actually has more to offer than just numbers is because I've actually used it. I've used it in rehab and I've used it in performance structures. And it's the ability for someone to feel more confident about the way they work. If I go back to if I got tested on my shoulder, what was the reasons why I didn't go back into the pitch? It wasn't the physical, it wasn't the technical tactical, it was psychosocial. Socially, my athletic identity had gone, someone else had took my place, someone else was playing in my position, they moved me into a different position that I hadn't played in. Psychologically, I wasn't really confident, I couldn't go into tackles the same way that I used to. Physical capacity was there, I didn't know it was there, because I didn't do any testing. Socially, I was not going to some of the socials after games, I was a little bit distant, I was sitting on different parts of the bus. Wasn't me. My habits changed because I wasn't going to the gym as much, I wasn't sleeping as well, I wasn't getting ready for games. But if I'd been tested and someone put together a really strong roadmap, I hope, I might still be playing now, and maybe I wouldn't be working as a practitioner in the sport. So it's about understanding how data can do more than just a number. That's really, really what I want to kind of focus in on, about individual students. How can data and how can testing and how can performance structures really improve the environment that we build, improve the practices and improve the interactions that we have with our students. Last one, there's a couple more slides, but I'll go quick. The KB fear holds a treasure of seat. It was a quote that I saw the other day, actually not the other day, but the other year. I really liked it. It was something that I had on my wall, and it was about the ability to actually go into something that we feared, and I think data is something where people sometimes think, oh, numbers, it's not a bit of me, it's too far advanced. But sometimes it really gives us the ability to actually understand what's going on and think better. And if you were to use Valve, not even Valve, any form of testing, any form of data that you can do, there has a lot of treasure there that you can actually pull from. And I do think people sometimes overcomplicate it. They think our testing is for the elite teams. It's really, really not. If you actually think about what they're doing, they actually do things very simplistic. If you look at all the Premier League clubs that we work with, you look at what they're testing, it's very simplistic stuff that they're actually doing. Unless it's for research-based or if it's a more complex situation, it's very, very simplistic stuff. And you can start with something as simple as a sprint speed with certain teams, or grip strength for wellness and readiness, or you could get pretty much everything and go all out. So you make it as advanced or as simplified as you want. So the KPP holds the treasure that we see. So always think about that in different life scenarios, not just obviously data. Just off the back of that, so going back into Valve, so if you want to know a little bit more about Valve and what we offer and the different systems and how that can potentially apply to your programs, we have education across, practitioners guides, searchable on knowledge base, we have practical webinars, onboarding journeys, there's a lot of articles on there of how we've implemented our technology within other college and university setups. So, the information is there, and we can obviously have a conversation around how to actually implement that into your holistic programs of developing students. If you wanted to, grab me, I'll happily have a conversation around, linking you up to other universities that we use work with abroad or within the region, how they utilise our kit. There's a code there which I I'm not too sure. It does take you to the impact, I'm pretty sure it does. But if you want to scan that, it'll take you to our impact and give you an idea of actually all the systems that we do online. But that is pretty much me. Thank you for listening, thank you for engaging. As I say, I'm here to network, I'm here to learn a little bit more about the university setup here in the UAE and see what potential collaboration that we can do, not just from Val, but also from personally from the physiotherapy, sports science and consultancy work I do as well. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, we could have them right now. I'll give you the mic.
Thank you. So we talked earlier about the more mental health, and this is an experience from before in my previous role in performance coaching and swimming. We had certain test sets we had certain SNC like the counter jumps and stuff that we did. Tend to find some athletes really enjoyed it, they could see progressions, and I had a whole bunch of others who became obsessed with this data and panicked. Is there, again, from your guys' experience, ways of trying to balance that? Not every time you do a test set is it necessarily going to get better. We said the guys we're working with aren't professional athletes, they are recreational part-time, so every time they do a jump set, it's not going to be an improvement. Is there a way to find benefits in that still, and kind of how to encourage it?
Yeah, 100%. So, try and if I was to go back to when we actually, the way that we test, certain athletes that I work with now don't really like us showing, we tend to go away from doing group monitoring dashboards, especially with certain teams and certain age groups. So we understand and we teach athletes that you'll develop at different rates. Also the implications of job, fatigue, whatever it is, you're not always going to be, getting better over time. But what we can, as I was saying, longitudinally track is something where we can actually teach athletes what part of the season are we at. And that gives a really good indication of fatigue levels, potential injuries that we're facing across that, how many minutes they play, but lots of different things, readiness to play, actually educating the performers on that is really important. The other point that you've got to think about is that if you were to work with an athletic population and you work with them over a 12-week period, if that person is really, really well trained, you might only get 1 or 2% improvements, and sometimes athletes are like, that's rubbish. I'm like, well, no, because you're trained. You're 1 or 2 improvement over, if you're working especially with a professional athlete or even semi-professional, they might not move the needle that much, but they put a lot of effort in. Whereas if you work with someone who's completely untrained and you try and move the needle, essentially, or move the number up, you can see 15, 20, 25, 30, 40% improvements, just say for athletes. So educate them on where they're at now, judge them against themselves, but actually giving them the bigger picture, so understanding that, okay, you might not be improving in this area, or actually we're on the wrong path in terms of your peak power, you can't movement jump, but actually your sprint speed or your kick adductor strength has improved massively, and you know that your injuries that you've had before are also around that region. So it's about making it specific to them, trying not to back to them when they don't get better, like, what are you doing, unless they're getting worse than everything, then you might have to pull them in. But yeah, make it specific to them, their situation, but make it about a bigger picture, a long-term goal rather than short-term gains.
Okay, do we have any other questions? One more.
Hello, thank you for the presentation, Chris. I'm coming to a question regarding, you said that challenges for starting sports. So, for example, in UAE, there are well-established sports in universities, basketball, soccer, volleyball. However, in high school level, there are much more sports. So there is, let's say, a gap on transition between high school sports to university level sports. let's put a case, for example, RIT Dubai. We have started since November last year to practice rugby, and we try our best to reach out to other universities. But again, the network was a bit of a challenge, and we are, let's say, on our own trying to promote the sport. We recently signed up for the rugby MX Sevens that is in December. But again, I just wanted to touch base on, let's say, today's rugby, tomorrow, let's say, another sport. Yeah. What would be, in your opinion, the way we can create a network where maybe students from different universities want to take a sport they were practicing when they were in high school, and now they want to go in university and they don't have the sport. So, you lose a bit of momentum, and also there are so many opportunities.
So just to clarify, so was you saying about sports that are available in colleges and high schools not being available in university, and what to actually how to combat that? Probably something that was not my specialism, in honesty. The only thing I can probably say is actually look at potential talent transfer. Are you a coach here? Oh, student, okay. Yeah. So identifying that there's lots of clubs and things like that. If it's not happening in the university, there's going to be something outside the university that they could do. For certain sports like rugby, for example. Here, I know that I've always been trying to, incorporate with us at UE Rugby and try and get something going here. If it's not happening here, then or at the university, we'd like to do something close by. I understand students, travel, restrictions might be an issue there. I'd look at transfer potentially. So, if it's a combat sport that they might do jiu-jitsu here, but they might do boxing, they might do MMA, and you look at potential talent transfers, that's what I ended up doing, rugby. And when I had my injury, I went into jiu-jitsu, I went into the next thing that wasn't as heavy on kicks, basically, but then it's just as hard because you're getting absolutely, you're just getting rolled all the time. You've got people who've played it, performed it for a long time. So look at talent transfer, look at different things that you can do outside of that sphere, but if not, speak to your sport coordinators at the university and see if you can implement something with the federations, like what we're trying to do with UE Rugby. Good, perfect.
Thank you for your I just want to repeat again the good for you. With that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Anna Borsheim, who is the founder of Bulletproof Performance and a physiotherapist and sports performance coach. Anja is a Norwegian physiotherapist and sports performance coach with over a decade of experience working with elite athletes across a multitude of sports. As a former high-level volleyball player, she now focuses mainly on helping volleyball athletes across the globe take their game to the next level. Through Bulletproof Performance, she's passionate about bridging the gap between rehab and performance, equipping athletes with the tools to train smarter, recover faster, and perform at their best. Please welcome Anja Borsheim to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, RIT, for having me, and all of you for spending your time. I'm invaluable these days, so I don't take that for granted, and I will hopefully try to bring some value. Like Faye mentioned, my name is Anya, and I'm the founder of Bulletproof Performance, and today we'll be talking about how to build bulletproof athletes. Now, to kick us off, I've never actually used one of these. So, to kick us off, I first have two questions for all of you. I'd like you to raise your hand if you think that frequent injuries have a negative impact on your athletic program. Alright, and then second, also raise your hand if you'd like to see your teams and your players consistently perform better, giving you a greater return on the time and money that you invest into your program. Alright, good. Now, before we get to how we achieve those things, let me quickly introduce myself and give you a little bit of my backstory. Now, for those of you that don't already know, I'm Norwegian, and I promise this is not a Norwegian travel promotion, but this is instead where my journey into the world of sports performance first started. When I was 15 years old, I left home to go to the National Volleyball Academy, which is this little bubble that you see up here in the right corner. That is pretty much my entire world for 3 years. You see our gym in the front, the white building is our dorm rooms and our cafeteria, and the yellow one is our school. Now, the academy is located pretty much as far into the Norwegian shores as you can get it, which, looking back at it, was probably a genius move because it meant that you had nothing to do but to live and breathe volleyball for those 3 years. Which I can imagine it's quite different trying to keep your students focused and in check in a city like Dubai, so kudos to all of you for doing that. Now, although I mostly have great memories from this time, when I first started in the academy, there was two main problems. Problem number one, I was short. And whenever I say that in the UAE, I always get protests. But the reality is that in the volleyball world, I was, and I still am. That meant that I had to learn the brutal reality that if I ever wanted to compete, that I had to be better at pretty much everything except height. Now, the second problem was that when we first started, the academy at the time was brand new. But although we had amazing world-class coaches on the court from the very beginning, when it came to the support off the court, we had nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. Our strength room was the size of my current bedroom, and if you ever needed to see the physio, you needed to take a 2-hour boat ride, a 40-minute bus trip to see the physio for 30, and then do the whole thing in return to get back. Now, needless to say, me being a young aspiring athlete, desperate to jump higher and to reach my volleyball goals, paired with very little support and guidance of how to actually achieve those things, meant that I worked myself into a lot of unnecessary and pain injuries over those years. And then, because I've always been that annoying little kid that asks the why a million times, that led me down the path of first becoming a physiotherapist, and then later on also a strength and conditioning coach and sports performance coach. Since then, I've worked in multiple sports clinics, both in Norway and here in the UAE, across all sports initially, everything from soccer to tennis, golf, Olympic weightlifting, and everything between. But however, I've always had one foot in the clinic and then one foot in the gym or on the court. And what I see when I have been placed by that is there tends to be this gap between these two worlds. And just as my younger self experienced, it's the athlete that tends to fall in the middle. So that's where the thought and idea behind Milestone Performance first came. I wanted to find a better way to bridge these two worlds together. Since then, I've had the pleasure with working with players from all around the world. We are mainly online based, so we work with athletes from anywhere from the US to Australia and all between. We also work with a couple of individual athletes from other sports as well, but we mainly now focus on volleyball. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into who I am, why I do what I do, and why I'm here today. But enough about me, and let's get back to the question of why sports injuries matter when it comes to university programs. Starting with taking a look at what the numbers say. Now, today, 55% of student athletes will suffer at least one injury per season. And 30 to 45% of those injuries will result in more than 1 week on the sideline. The average college or university athlete can count on spending as much as 15 to 20% of their total university time on the sidelines due to injury alone. And if we filter that for high-risk sports, such as rugby, for example, then the numbers jump to 2+ injuries per season and 46 weeks on average out. So it's pretty nasty statistics. But that's not the only cause. There's also research that shows that injury-linked athletes are twice as likely to leave sports and studies. It has a huge impact on performance volatility. not to mention the ripple effects that all of this has on performance, funding, and retention. But what about injury prevention? Does it really work, or is it just another box that the program is expected to tick off? Let's have a look. Teams using structured injury prevention consistently report 12 to 18% improvement in player availability, a staggering 50 to 70% less time lost due to injuries, and an overall 4 to 18% increase in win rates. Not too bad. So at the end of the day, healthy teams win more games. But numbers aren't everything, and I'm sure that most of you have heard the quote, success leads to. So what if we instead take a look at the top down? What does the pros have to say? Now, for the last couple of years, as part of our Bulletproof Academy, we've been running an interview series where we get the chance to sit down and talk to some of the best volleyball players in the world and pick their brains. And the topics of physical training and injuries are something that comes up in almost every interview. But I picked out 2 small clips here today, and the first one is from my fellow Norwegian and Academy graduate, Christian Stern, where we asked him, what do you think has made the biggest difference for you to become the player that you are today? And this is his answer.
That's a really important thing to always think about again. That way it goes through. I think people don't recognize this as a big achievement to be better. People are thinking, I'm going this way to go out every day because one of the key functions is to stay healthy all the time, so you can get a little bit better, a little bit better all the time.
And then the second one is from the Dutch giant, Stefan Bormans, where we asked him, how important do you think that physical abilities is in order to be successful as a beach volleyball player? And this is his answer.
The end of the ball, so everything in beach volleyball is really important to put the ball where you want, but if you're not physically able to perform that, then you're nowhere. So I would say the physical basic foundation is like maybe 80-90%, and then the little part which is left. Like if you can jump high and you can hit hard somewhere, you know, muscle, it's good. But if you don't have the time to control the ball, that's not use. So I would say make sure your body is strong enough to get all the things that you need and actually put it to performance in each volleyball. So don't only train the volleyball, use your legs and everything really carefully, because then you can jump high, you can side hard, and probably you build your muscles.
Now, looking good as a side effect has never hurt anyone, has it? But a top player, this is a guy that came 5th at the last Olympics. Stern came 3rd. And for him to say that he allocated as much as 80 to 90% of his success on the court to his physical abilities is huge. But here we have a couple more faces that probably those outside of the volleyball world are also more familiar with. But my question to you is, what do all of these guys have in common? Any suggestions?
Very little injury history. Little injury history.
Yeah? Differences? So the first answer is they make it look easy. All of these players make what they do, players or athletes, make what they do look almost effortless. They're so efficient in what they do that it just flows, right? But then they have a second thing in common. This is a bit small, so you can't quite see, but this tells you how old they are, or better, the age he was when he retired. And the second thing is not that they're old, but it is that they're considered to be among the greatest of their sports ever, and they achieve that at an age where they already surpassed where most of the players in that sport have already retired. So my point here is that when an athlete is movement efficient, not only do they perform better, but their bodies will also take a lot less beating doing so. Meaning that they have the chance to get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and keep separating themselves from the rest of the competition. Now, whenever I talk about movement efficiency, I need to make this little side note. Because efficient does not mean perfect. And when I say perfect, I'm referring to biomechanics. Now, this could be a whole talk in and of itself, but I'm just going to leave you with this example, which is that these feet that are flat, overpronated, and where one foot is half an inch shorter than the other, together with this back with a huge scoliosis, still belongs to the fastest man to ever walk on this planet, or I should say run. But back to movement efficiency. What do we really mean with this? In general, we can look at it as wanting to minimize in order to maximize. We want to minimize energy leaks in order to maximize output. We want to minimize pain and injury in order to maximize resilience. And we want to minimize setbacks to ultimately maximize wins and career longevity. So how do we achieve all of that? Well, at Bulletproof, we use something that we call the 6S system, where performance meets prevention. Our first S is sport specific. Now, it doesn't really matter if your athlete is doing CrossFit, yoga, or a 7-day-a-week growth split. When it comes to optimizing for sports performance, it is simply just not going to cut it. One of the main reasons why is because most of these training forms and programs are focused only on moving in one dimension. When in reality, life, and especially sports, always happens in 3 planes of motion at the same time. Now imagine if you're a basketball player and you're going to try to dribble someone, but you're only allowed to move up and down or front to back. No side steps and no rotation. Seems pretty ridiculous, right? So in order to start creating a good physical program for a sport, we need to start with understanding the unique physical demands of that sport. What are the movement patterns that we use? What are the energy systems that are being utilized? And what are the most common injury factors that we will also need to account for? If your program doesn't do a good enough job in bridging those things together, then not only will you have an increase in injury risk, but we're also leaving huge performance gains on the table. Our second S is season specific, or in other words, getting your athletes the right training at the right time so that they can perform their best when it matters most, also known as periodization. Now, throughout the competition season and through the year, your athlete's sports training will vary a lot, both in volume, frequency, intensity, and a physical program should also take this into account and be able to adapt to it. If not, you end up with a mismatch of total loading, and your athletes will either end up burning out or breaking down. This is probably 2 of the most common mistakes that I ever see with especially younger athletes, is that they will train really hard during their preseason, but then the competition season rolls around and they're like, oh, I have so much volleyball training, or I'm running so much in soccer, that they just stop their physical training and they only focus on their sport. This will mean that throughout a long season, they will lose out on all of those games that they worked so hard to gain in the first place. And they'll be left a lot more prone to injury. The second mistake is that instead of stopping, they'll change nothing. And they'll just continue training as if it was preseason, although their total loading has obviously increased by a lot. And this leads to overtraining, stagnation in performance, and eventually burnout. So you see, when they do these 2 strategies, they end up stuck in this triangle. They train hard for preseason, they improve their abilities, and then they choose 1 of 2 options, and they end up stuck right where they started. So again, you want to get out of that. You want to be able to get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better for each season. Now, the third S stands for strong foundation. And this one is probably my personal favorite. Maybe it's because you own me. But we need our athletes to understand that in order for them to move fast, high, or heavy, they need to first move well. And the reason why I love this one so much is almost every bulletproof athlete will know that this is a non-negotiable for me, because when we start to really break things down and look at them, there is always something that we can work on. And initially, another thing to look out for if you're working with athletes and you're screening them and you're assessing them, is to know that most athletes are masters at hiding their lack of control with speed. So if they can't fully control something, they'll do it fast, they'll make it look good, and then they're like, okay, what's next? But then if you ask them to do that same movement, but really slow it down this time, that's when things start to fall apart and get interesting. Now, they will get very frustrated at this in the beginning, but if you manage to explain to them why this is important and how they can work on changing these things, not only will they then understand and start to feel better and move better, but they'll also have experience in being faster, stronger, and more powerful. All right. As number 4, I will start with science. Now, please don't hire this guy to kick your athlete's arm. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of getting creative in the gym. I myself have been that girl since I was 15 years old that is one doing all the weird shit in the gym. But sport, by nature, is unpredictable. And it's important that we bring in a lot of movement variation and also train the athletes on their adaptability. But then there's always someone that has to take it too far. So we want to make sure that the programs that we do and the choices that we make are eventually, at the end of the day, rooted in science. They should be proven, they should not be TikTok trending. S number 4 also pairs very nicely together with S number 5, and like my peer was just talking about, the importance of having data and information help guide us. Because if you're not assessing, you are guessing. So strategic testing and consistent tracking definitely needs to have a place within your program. At the same time, today with all the technology and everything that we have available, there's almost no limits to what we can test and track anymore. So this can also quite quickly feel overwhelming, both for whoever is running the program, but also for the athletes. So you want to be mindful of this and make sure that you're not testing just for the sake of testing. There should always be a reason to what you choose to test and track. Whether that's to identify strengths and weaknesses, it's to increase your athlete's motivation and buy-in, or if it's to help monitor your program's effectiveness. Which leads us at the last S, which stands for sustainable. Now, when you're a young, hungry athlete looking to get better, the first question they tend to ask themselves and think is, I have to do more. I have to lift more, I have to run more, I have to do more reps, I have to push myself harder. But very rarely do they ever stop to question, is there anything I should be doing better? Or even, is there anything I should be doing less of? At the end of the day, we live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with quotes like, no pain, no gain, or pain is weakness leaving the body. And where the quality of the workout often gets measured by how sweaty, sore, or tired it made you feel. Now, I would argue that making someone feel sweaty, sore, and tired, that's easy. But actually making someone better, now that's a different ballgame. So if there is one thing that I really wish that younger athletes especially could learn and understand earlier, not have to do it the hard way, it's that more isn't always better. Better is better. So quality over quantity all day, every day, and also keeping in mind that when it comes to our training, training is only half of the equation. What you do between your sessions matters just as much, if not more, as what you do in that session. So at the end of the day, you also need to take into account that your students, they are not full-time paid professional athletes. They're full-time students and full-time teenagers or young adults with everything that includes. So expecting them to function and work as paid professional athletes, it's not realistic. So if you make a program and on paper, that program is the best amazing program in the world, as long as it's not doable and adaptable with the students or the athlete that it's meant for and their life, then in my humble opinion, it's still a shitty program. Because it's just not going to get done. Alright, so that's the framework that we work by at World Group. And to put it into practice, I'd like to present you with one of our World Group athletes. This is Alia. Alia is an Emirati athlete. She's a volleyball player for the UAE national team. And when I first started working with Alia, it was during COVID lockdown. At the time, she had already been training on her own for a while, almost daily, but she wasn't really seeing the results that she was after, so she reached out. And instead of seeing results, she was just getting increasingly exhausted and frustrated that she felt she was doing all this work and she was not getting anywhere. So Alia, like I mentioned, and so many others, had to first of all learn that more is not better. Instead, we redesigned her program, and then fast forward 5 months later, the lockdown lifted, and Alia went back to the club for pre-season testing, where she absolutely destroyed every single physical test that they had done the year before. The icing on the cake, she added 29 centimeters to her vertical jump. Now, as a volleyball player, I know volleyball players don't go for that quite literally. Myself probably included. But that isn't even the best part of it for me. Because the best part is that Alia did all of this, training from home. She had a very basic setup. At some point, I even made her create a TRX out of her old pair of bed sheets. I hope her mom forgives me. And I also never met Alia in person. Everything that she did, from her assessment to her video feedback to her check-in, was all done online. And Alia still remains a World Group athlete and follows the program to this day, although both her club and national team have had several in-person coaches since then. So I was very happy to have this girl on board, and this is her feedback on her experience with the program. So with that, thank you so much for your attention.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm like literally right here. Just curious, do you still focus on just volleyball here, or do you see applications in other sports?
So our main focus now is volleyball. We sort of sent it in there, but I still work with a couple of individual athletes from other sports as well. Obviously, the closest and most natural overlap is basketball players. So there we have a few, but also a couple of other sports.
Firstly, thank you so much for your presentation. So I have a question in terms of optimizing the performance. As you mentioned that you are working with majority the volleyball players, which is a team sport. So I want to know how the periodization training that works for teams. For individual athletes, I understand that you go into macro cycle for about 6 months, and then the competition is announced, then you train, then you go into the mesocycle, and then you're closer to the competition, then it's a micro cycle where you refine the techniques and all these things. That is applicable for the individual athletes, but to optimize a team,
like volleyball in itself, how do you implement periodization training for the team sports?
It's a great question. I think it will depend a bit on the setting. So in the university setting with students versus professional will be a bit different, but in some sport, like volleyball, there are key demands and physical abilities that are required from all of the athletes. Speed and agility, overhead movements, serving. Not all of them will spike, but all of them will serve. So there are key elements that I would look at are applicable to all of the athletes. Then I would focus on that more in group sessions. And then if they then have their individualized strength training programs, for example, you can look more at the individual position and what are the requirements for that position, and then try to get even more tailored. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, For our next speaker, Sam Griffiths is currently the head of facilities at UAE, where he focuses on building and improving spaces that bring people together with sport. With years of experience in the UAE sports scene, from running football academics and academies and teams to launching new concepts, he's passionate about creating accessible, innovative, and community-driven sports facilities. Whether it's coaching on the field or designing what's next, he's all about growing participation in sports here in the UAE. Please welcome Sam Griffiths to the stage.
Thank you very much. I'll just be patient and wait for my presentation. Also, some of you might be confused because I believe a lot of you will have seen me in a tracksuit at the side of the football pitch. I am also the head football coach for RIT's men's soccer team. So this subject is a personal one for me on many different levels, from a professional level to a coaching level, for a lot of different reasons. What I am going to do today is I'm going to present to you what we say is the future of sports facilities here in the UAE, with an idea of concepts and designs, along with some of the projects we're currently working on within localised to Dubai right now, but also looking UAE-wide at other projects that we might be working on in the future. The reason that I'm here at university is because the facilities that we're developing have a focus towards university sports. First of all, I want to ask a question. Who in here is managing a university sports program? If I don't see hands, I'm in the wrong place. Okay, how many of you wish you had more facilities in your university? I'm definitely in the right place. I'm definitely in the right place. So I'm aware that some of the universities here have fantastic facilities. I've experienced them myself. Here at RIT, some amazing indoor facilities. NYU, I've been there myself, I've seen some of the facilities, but I also know that there's a lack of overall facility opportunities for sports participation here in the UAE. Bit of my background, I've been in the sports industry since 2005, so it's 20 years now. It's probably my 20th anniversary of being in sports. I started in the UK, in a local facility, booking sports halls and swimming pools, running birthday parties and all sorts of events in the local community. Thanks. So I moved to the UAE 10 years ago, started in some education, sports, but primarily I've been involved in sports facilities. Worked with some of the biggest schools here in the UAE, King's School, American School of Dubai, lots of different facilities around the UAE. Recently, I joined RIT as the soccer coach, and it opened up my experience to universities as well. And throughout the first year, I experienced some challenges with facilities here in the UAE. In the meantime, I've joined Duplays. Now, Duplays have been in the market here in the UAE for over 15 years. Building, constructing, managing sports events, anything to do with sports, Duplays has been involved in. Duplays has been successful in developing sports facilities not only here in the UAE, but also in Saudi Arabia. This dome that we see here is a concept that has been rolled out in Saudi Arabia successfully by Duplays, and it's something that we're looking at in the future here in the UAE as well. I am going to give you, I don't want it to look like a sales pitch, but I'm going to show you some of the projects we're working on right now, some of the facilities we have, and then explain what our initiatives are, what our ideas are, and how to include more universities in these facilities and provide more opportunities to universities. I also don't want to just present to you guys something from our side. I want to spend a bit of time today to get an idea of what the universities need, what you guys as sports coordinators are missing, what you're looking for, what we could do as Duplays to support your universities. So just to get an idea, before we go into our presentation, those guys that put their hands up and said they want more sports facilities, let me see those hands. Okay, give me an example of one sports facility you wish you had at your university.
An indoor stadium.
An indoor stadium. For what kind of sport?
That should be multi-purpose, for basketball, volleyball, badminton, shuttle.
Excellent. And you're from?
I'm from De Montfort.
De Montfort University. Okay. Somewhere else. I saw another hand over here.
Football field.
Football field. Okay. So there's many different sports facilities. I mean, we know here, I'll give you my experience. I'm here coaching for RIT. I'm very, very envious of what the basketball and the volleyball have. These guys have beautiful facilities. I'm sent elsewhere with 30 rowdy football students to teach them in a facility that they don't want to be in because the turf's too hard or the pitch isn't big enough. But this is important. This is really important. This is about motivation. It's about motivation of sport. If the facilities aren't right, you could be the best coach. I could be the best coach in the world. But if I have to teach my team to play 11-a-side football on a 6-a-side football pitch, it's just not going to work. And this goes for all of the sports. It's the same with, I know there's big issues with cricket, for example, in this country, and finding facilities for cricket. The young man, the student, asked, he said, there's not enough rugby. This is where Duplays and myself, I'm really passionate about this project, to try and bring more facilities to people within the UAE. Also, Dr. Yusuf at the start mentioned about wellness and giving students something to improve their wellness. We've talked a lot about mental health and sport improving and helping mental health. One of the key factors of that is having somewhere to go. Having somewhere to go is very, very important. Now I'm just going to present to you the first project that we're working on. It's very local. It's just across the road. Don't panic when you see the name, because it is within another university facility. And thank you, Faisal, for inviting me. Don't feel like I'm hijacking for a project that's not within RIT. So, our first project is called HCT Active, and it's across the road at Academic City. Now, just to be clear, this is a private project, but it is funded through HCT University, the Higher College of Technologies. As you can see, it is a massive facility. It is huge. But there's a why. Why are we building this? One of the biggest reasons that was given to us by HCT to build this facility is we want to encourage more university sports participation. And how can we do that? By building bigger, better, more diversified sports facilities. You'll see we are going to build 5 football pitches. 4 of those are FIFA standard size 11-side football pitches. That's unique to the UAE. Very unique. There are a few venues that are either 50 kilometres that way or 120 kilometres that way. This is a very unique opportunity here in the centre of Dubai, and a very unique opportunity that is open to universities. We're building cricket wicket and cricket nets. Now I'm excited about this because I used to be a cricketer. As well as a footballer, I used to play cricket in the UK. The cricket wicket that we're introducing is a specialised, built-for-purpose, synthetic cricket wicket. Now, for any of you guys that have played cricket on synthetic wickets before, they're terrible. But this one is purpose-built. It's designed at 7mm thickness. It's like the carpet beneath my feet, but designed for cricket. Surrounding it will be football fields that are designed at 50mm. So what they do is they build a base underneath to raise the cricket pitch to the same level of the turf, which is actually very innovative. And it's the future of sport. This is what we're talking about, the future of sport. We know that in this country, grass pitches, soil pitches, it's very difficult to maintain. And it's very difficult to justify the cost versus benefit. Whereas synthetic is a much longer, surviving, and much more sustainable practice. We'll use this also for our cricket nets, 6 bays of cricket nets. Beyond that, there's a 50-metre swimming pool. I'm not going to talk about the amount of money it's going to cost to renovate that swimming pool, but a 50-metre Olympic-sized swimming pool, again, is very unique to the UAE and very unique to universities. That swimming pool has been there for around 20 years, and this is the first renovation that we're doing on this swimming pool. I was there yesterday and I saw the amount of sand they took out the filters. If anybody wants to see afterwards, come and see me. The amount of sand they took out the filters from 20 years of use of a swimming pool is insane. So we're doing upgrades, renovations on all these facilities. We have stadium tennis court with 1,000 seat capacity for spectators. We're going to be renovating the current tennis courts to ITF standards, 40 metres by 20 metres, to ensure proper competition. We're also going to be improving the running track and adding paddle courts. But there's also something exciting that's coming. So we talk about what we've got to offer, our 11-a-side, our 50-metre, etc. But our clubhouse, this is something that's a bit about the future. This is what we're looking at as a way of making sports facilities different to what they are now. So often, again, I know I'll use my experience. I take my boys to play football. They play football for 2 hours, they go home. There's nothing else. Our clubhouse is going to be complete with indoor gym, functional gym, high rocks training, which we know is the new phase, the new craze now, studios, wellness and recovery suites, physiotherapy suites, changing washrooms, along with co-working, retail, F&B, and esports. Everything that's been mentioned here today is included in this facility that we're building. And this is what we believe is the future of sports in the UAE. Not just a pitch, not just a tennis court, but providing an option for everybody. Almost a hangout area, and this is why it's attractive to students. Not just at the university, to all the students in this area. We know, we look over here in Silicon Oasis, there are thousands of students there that don't have access to this kind of facility. And this is what we're trying to drive, is access and participation. And these kind of facilities are really going to allow for that access, that participation, that community engagement between students, which is what we're looking for. Also, this idea comes a little bit from, if you see now, a lot of our gyms are located in malls. They're located in communities. You know, it used to be that your gym used to be in a warehouse somewhere in an industrial area. You'd go for 30 minutes, get sweat, go home. Dubai is a unique population. People want everything right here, right now, within 5 minutes of where they are. If you go to play football, you're going to finish football, you might want to go and hang out, get some food, grab a burger. You might want to bring your teammates to come and watch you if you're playing another sport. And this is where these facilities that we're building are going to provide those opportunities. We're going to move on to another project that we're developing here in UAE, in Dubai, on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is going to be completely indoors. So this is another unique prospect for the UAE, which aims to tackle a challenge that we have here in the UAE. One of the biggest challenges is outdoor space and indoor space. We know that for 6 to 8 months of the year, we can utilise amazing outdoor space. But for the other 4 months of the year, we need indoor space. So I'm just going to go through the indoor space that we're developing on Sheikh Zayed Road. There's a lot to take in from this drawing. Bear with me. I know a few people are squinting. I can share all of this afterwards. But again, it's a new concept, it's a new idea. There are some of these facilities in existence, but none of them have what we have. Some of them have it, but not all in one place. You've got the Danube Sports World or Dubai Sports World. This is going to be something completely revolutionary. And again, the reason I'm here to speak to you guys is because we want to encourage university participation. That is one of our key goals and one of our key objectives. Okay, we know that there are many academies out there, we know that there are many school groups, but universities need access to these kind of facilities. Now this facility, if I'm going to list everything, is insane. I mean, you can see we've got indoor football, indoor basketball, paddle courts, squash, even very interesting things, golf academy, indoor golf simulator. This is something really exciting. Indoor cricket. We've even got climbing and bouldering within the same facility. Swimming pool. Again, there's not as many swimming pools open to public in the UAE as there should be. And this is going to be a public swimming pool. Also, we're going to have all the same things that we've got in our gym, in HCT. Our studio and performance centres, our gyms, traditional gyms, high rocks, recovery zone, physiotherapy. We want to make all of our facilities all in one. We don't want people to come to see us for one and then have to go somewhere for something else. We have your students with us practicing basketball and they need to see physiotherapists, we have that. If you have events and you need conference rooms or you need event support, we have all of that. Another thing that I haven't touched on and something that we look at as being a real potential for you guys is that these venues are going to host lots of sporting competitions, events, and one of the things also we want to do, again, we talked about wellness experience for students, is encourage internships, work experience, and not just opportunities for your students to play sport, but also to get internship opportunities. They're into sport, they love sport, they're playing sport. We talked about sport in identity. Okay, if you're not an athlete, what are you doing? Now, I'm not an athlete anymore. I was when I was in my 20s. You can probably tell I'm not now. I'd love to be. But I'm still within sport, and I'm still doing sports because I love sports. So one of the ways we're trying to improve the life for students is also to offer them those opportunities in internship, work experience, because it gives them opportunities to stay within sport even if they're not competing. And this is something that we're very excited about as well. Again, just a bit of what we've got to offer. Don't need to go through all of that, we spoke about it before, but what's really important is what we aim to do. What do places aiming to do? In partnership with the venues that we have, in partnership with HTT, in partnership with our venue in Al-Quds, we want to promote an active lifestyle for all students, whether that be sports training, whether it be initiatives, events, gym memberships. We want to encourage inter-university engagement through events and tournaments. Anybody here today that's been involved in the UAE University Games? Hands up if you've been involved in the UAE. So far we have football, basketball, volleyball, male and female, 6 sports. We want to try and improve the amount of sports offerings available at that level. Maybe it's introducing athletics, swimming, individual sports like tennis, paddle tennis. With facilities like this, we have the infrastructure to be able to run these kind of events. Also, I know lots of you run amazing events. Steve was here earlier from Amity. They run some amazing sports events. RIT ran a sports clash at the end of the year. Amazing events. I also saw recently there was an indoor football tournament at Danube Sports World. These are great events that encourage student participation, inter-university participation, and we're going to have those facilities available. We also want to provide world-class facilities for teams and individual sports, and also for the wider community. And the reason I say world-class facilities is because here in the UAE, many of you will have experienced facilities that are aging, maybe they're not the right size, maybe they're not fit for purpose. One of the things we really focused on when we developed HCT Active was making sure that our facilities are fit for purpose for an elite level. Our swimming pool, 50-metre, 8-lane swimming pool to host competitions. Our football pitches, all minimum size, 60 metres by 102 metres, so that they can fit FIFA football, 11-a-side football matches. Our tennis courts, 40 by 20 metres, to ensure that they match ITF standards. So we're taking care about these small details in the facilities to make sure that we can host events and competitions to the standard required. As mentioned I skipped myself for some reason. We want to encourage a wider range of sports to be included in the UAE University Games. This is something we would really like to do. I know Faisal, you're on the board, the advisory board. I know David, you're on the advisory board. We're here to say, we are here to support in any inclusion of sports that you think can be added to create value for the universities. We know, is there anybody here from Middlesex today? I know you guys have an amazing athletics program. I was at the Amity Awards. All of your athletes won athletics awards. Sadly, you don't have access to UAE University Games. We would love to be a part of offering our facilities to say, please consider athletics, to allow for strong universities with strong athletes to perform at that level and not feel like they're being left out because everybody's got football fields or everybody's got basketball courts. The young gentleman mentioned about rugby. There's a lot of players out there playing badminton or squash or other unique sports that aren't in this competition. We want to encourage those sports to be included in this competition. We also want to introduce students to new sports and give them opportunities to engage in competition. Talked about high rocks earlier today, especially when we're talking about performance training and things like this. High rocks is a very, very exciting sport that is coming around. It's born out of the idea of CrossFit. It's like a race. Now, there are many students, I know out there will be a massive percentage of students that are going to gyms now and they're seeing high rocks and thinking, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I'm not just pumping weights, I'm not just running on the treadmill. I'm seeing it as a sport, as a game. There's no reason why high rocks couldn't be in the future introduced to the UAE University Games. This is something, again, all of our facilities are going to be able to facilitate this sport, because it's a sport, and it's a new sport, so we want to introduce students to those new sports. Also, paddle tennis. I know there's a lot of demand for paddle tennis here in the UAE, a lot of demand, especially among students, because it's accessible, it's fun, it's a good networking tool. We're building lots of paddle tennis courts, but not just paddle tennis courts where people go and play paddle tennis. Again, it's part of the gym, part of the community, part of the culture, where everyone can be engaged together. Something also we're looking at, based on our vision of promoting active and healthy lifestyles, is providing highly subsidised gym and fitness memberships to university students to help them promote those healthy lifestyle options. We know that it's not always as affordable to go to these gyms here in the UAE. We know that students have a tight budget. Maybe they have more money to spend than we think, but they want to let us think that they've got a tight budget. Again, we want to be a place where students come and hang out. We want students to join our gyms, not just for HCT or RIT or Heriot Watt. We want the students to mingle. We want them to be a community. One thing I don't want to talk about too much, but from my football experience this season is you can tend to get a healthy level of competition between universities, and there may be an unhealthy level of competition. You know, a bit of animosity, a bit of rivalry between certain universities. These sort of ideas, these sort of initiatives to bring universities together will hopefully help promote better sportsmanship, better values within sport. If people are seeing each other at the gym, they're seeing each other train, they're being around each other in social situations, they're less likely to want to fight each other on a football pitch, for example. So it's promoting healthy choices in that sense as well, and creating a better community for students. Also, we want to provide initiatives to support student growth and development across all sports. I've spoke to some of the guys here before. I spoke to David a few times, spoke to Faisal about initiatives that we can do. Duplex used to run an amazing initiative, something we're going to think about bringing back, called Friday Night Lights, which was basically a whole Friday night dedicated to universities, where they can come, they can run small tournaments, friendly tournaments, especially in our indoor venue. It's going to be an amazing opportunity for universities to come and have a little bit of fun. Less structured competition, more of a social competition. We know we've got our university games, but maybe on a Friday night the students can come and hang out, have a burger, go to the gym, play some sports together. So this is the sort of initiative we're looking at. And then, like we said, offer students internships and work experience, because, like we said, beyond the identity of being a sports player, there's a lot more that we can do in sports. There's a lot more that we can do to help students understand that as well, whether it be from coaching courses or event support. Even, for example, some of my students in the football team have asked me before about, can we come and help with referees? Can we come and help with tournaments? Again, this is a really, really good opportunity that we're looking at to provide that opportunity for your students. And that's pretty much it from me. Like I said, one of the things I wanted to do today was speak to a lot of you guys and understand what you need. For us, we're not just developing facilities here in Dubai. This is the start of something bigger for Duplex. So we would like to get feedback from everybody in here, have a little bit of a conversation, and understand what students need, what students want, what leadership wants and needs, because that can help us develop future facilities here in the UAE. As I said, thank you for the amazing Also, thank you, Faisal, for joining me after all these amazing presentations today. I suppose I'll ask you, any questions? Yes?
Thank you. I'm sorry if I missed it, but what are the timescales on these projects? When do you expect them to be near ready? When do you expect them to be ready to actually practice in? And are you going to launch everything at once, or will it be kind of in phases for things you have planned?
Very good question. It's a question that everybody is asking me. The HCT project, the outdoor facilities will all be ready for September. So I'm having conversations now with people here in this room, people outside the room, about what we have available for September. Some of our more ambitious projects, some of our more construction-related projects, we're looking more at January 2026. But in terms of the outdoor facilities at HCT, the cricket pitches, the football pitches, the tennis courts, swimming pool, all of this will be operational before September. I also suggest if anybody is interested in coming to see the facilities, more than happy to show you around and let you see what we have to offer.
Perfect. Thank you for the presentation. It was an excellent business pitch, I would say. We recently organized an inter-university competition at Daniel Saudi Arabia. It was a good event. And also, I would like to ask, when you said the HCP active, is it open for all students or is it only for the HCP? And I mean, I'm just thinking on that side of if there is any conflict of interest, would there be any conflict of interest?
Yeah, so first of all, there is zero conflict of interest, and I'll explain why. The reason is because the project, whilst it's within the campus, it's its own private project. So it is its private project. HCT are heavily involved because it benefits their students, but their goal and their intention along with Dupays was to provide something for the community here in Silicon Oasis, but also extended throughout Dubai. So yeah, all of our facilities are fully open and fully accessible to all universities and all university students. There are no limitations.
Yeah, so is TCOM involved in this project?
Not directly, no.
Because when you said it is for all the universities, I was wondering if TCOM is involved as well, because if you want to involve the whole university community, I was just thinking that angle as well, if TCOM would be involved, so that they can also be helpful in bringing the community, that is the university community, what you are planning to do in the HCT activity that will play.
So yeah, TCOM are one of the conversations that we've been having. So they're not directly involved right now, but they are a conversation we're having because we understand they have such an outreach with all the students here. They're a great partner to be involved in this with us.
Quick question. Great presentation. It looks very promising. One small thing. Is there any plans of like making an indoor track? Because that's one thing that is lacking in this country when it comes to track. So like let's say there's 60 meters and 100 meters, not the whole 400, but just like an indoor track. Is that going to work in the future?
So this is the reason why this forum is brilliant for us, because this is the sort of feedback that we need. We need to understand, okay, this is the first time I've been asked this question, but it's something now that we can look at and develop, because we say this is the start of many projects. So this is the sort of feedback that we need. This is the sort of feedback that will help us develop the sports infrastructure within the UAE. So thanks for the question. Really good.
Thank you, Sam, for the presentation. As you said, it looks very exciting. So my question is, obviously, from our perspective as Gulf United, as a private football club, one of the issues in the UAE is, you know, as a private club, we obviously don't have our own facility, so we're always looking for facilities to hire. But as we spoke about before, because everybody's using the same facilities, as you get towards the end of the season or even mid-season, facilities start to wear and you know, there's a lot of overuse of the facilities, which means that sometimes when it comes to game days and things like that, you might not necessarily get the level of facility that you're looking for. So is any of the pitches, footballing specifically, are they going to be kept as like a game day pitch or an elite pitch or anything like that, where the amount of time on those pitches are restricted? Or will it just be open for unlimited use, essentially?
Good question. I'll just go back. So, how do I get back? So, just to explain, maybe I was a bit rushed at the start, because I'm not used to these sort of presentations, so thank you for bearing with me. Not in front of, somebody said it's a sales pitch. I'm more used to sales pitches, so I apologise if it felt like a sales pitch. But just looking at this diagram here, football pitch 1, 2, 3 and 4, these are all synthetic turf pitches, so they're not grass pitches. So these are multi-use, long-term sustainable pitches. We know we've got the turf actually from a factory here in VIB where they do the testing. We know the lifespan of these pitches is around 7 to 10 years. So these pitches are going to be high quality synthetic turf. The university does have a main grass football pitch which will be kept for big events, UAE University, things like that. So we do have a distinction between our training pitches and what we would call the stadium pitch. So yeah, we do have that. One more?
Is there for spectators?
Yeah, so all of the facilities we're building we include spectator areas. It's something we were going through some designs a few days ago, especially for our indoor facility, about how to implement spectator space. In this design, you see we have a two-storey clubhouse here. Part of the two-storey clubhouse will be a roof terrace where people can spectate, but we'll also be providing plenty of areas. I mean, our stadium football pitch has 600 seat bleachers. Our tennis court has over 1,000 capacity bleachers. The swimming pool, over 400 person seating capacity. So most of our stadium facilities have spectator capacity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our sports symposium. Thank you so much to all of the speakers for taking your time and doing your insights to us. And thank you all as the audience for staying so engaged and asking some really great questions. Now we've come to the part where we've actually put all your names inside of a lucky draw. So we're going to pick out a name and see who the winner is now. Rajal Panjani, Star Sport Actor, On behalf of the organizing team, I hope you all experience new perspectives. Oh, we're doing 4. My bad, guys. And the next winner is Sujit Madhusudan. I'm so sorry for butchering this name. From Certain University Live. Ajay Raj, Sharvi Ajay Raj from Middlesex University Divide. Natalia Thomas.
We change that.
And our last winner Scott Caddy from NYU Abu Dhabi. Congratulations to all our winners. So now I'm going to ask you all to join us for a group picture and then we're going to head out to lunch. Come on up to the stage, guys.
Myself, congratulations. Very good, very good. Thank you so much.
Do you want to do like a sports proper like someone?
I
Do we need more than that? Are we getting more than that? Okay, yep. 1, 2. Go on.
Guys, hold that.